Tennessee. And that's where I got my first 6 months training. After 6 months, I got a furlough, 15-day furlough, which took 4.5 days to come home by train. Didn't have all them planes in them days. You can't rode by train, everybody. And while I was home, they sent me a telegram that we had moved to Fort Lewis, Washington, which was even further away, between Tacoma and Olympia. And I spent 6 months there, and I got another furlough. Got back, they had us quarantined, put us on a train, went to New York, ate Christmas dinner 43 in New York, got on the ship and went to Liverpool, England.
Oh, wow.
And actually, this is some of the pictures. I guess I was kind of lucky. They put us in a new outfit that they were supposedly bringing up, and it was the only one that they had. And I've never heard of it since, never heard it before. But we were in what they called the 692nd Quartermaster Battalion. It was the only Quartermaster Battalion, but it was a laundry battalion. And I think I can show you. Well, oh yeah. Tractor trailers was only started by 1939 or 40 because only 2-lane roads, so they were real short when they started. And here's the things that they fixed us up with, these trailers. In other words, we were, what we did was travel with field hospitals. Like we were attached to 4th Army Division of the 3rd Army. And we had to get close to water where we could pump water and be as close to the hospital as we could. That would be back off the front lines. But that way we kept everything where the soldiers were brought back from fresh off the front. In other words, we kept them in clean, everything that they needed in the way of towels and sheets and things of that type. My dad thought that I was some kind of a secret outfit because he was a World War I veteran. He never heard of this, and I've never heard of it since. But those trailers, you can see down the side of them, half of it fold up, half of it fold down, maybe twice as big. Each one of them had a big washer, big extractor, 2 tumblers, had a big generator for electricity, had gas furnace for heat. So we were out in the middle of the woods and had electricity, which was kind of most of them didn't have that. And we had one guy in our outfit that he'd been a plumber before, and he rigged up showers on every one of those trailers, and we could all take showers out in the middle of the woods. But that's what the trailers looked like. I didn't have any camera, so you just didn't get a whole lot of pictures in those days. And here's something you might want to look at. That's an actual snapshot of Adolf Hitler with Rudolf Hess. And we was on the line of Germany and France, and I don't know why, but this woman walked up and handed me that picture. And I just looked at it and stuck it in my pocket. I thought nothing about it. And now people tell me that's worth it. But, and why she gave that to me and never said a word, I'll never understand. But here I am right here. See, we had the fatigue. We had different type fatigues back in those days. Mm-hmm. That place there, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the places we took over. That was in Erlangen. And that was where, when women had babies for the Fuhrer, that's where they went to have them. And yeah, here's another picture of me here, if you want to look at any.
Sure.
But there's the trailers there, but we just didn't have a whole lot of the pictures there. Yeah, there's me here, and there's me here, there's me. That was when I was 20 years old. Like I said, I had just turned 18 when they bombed Pearl Harbor, and I had just turned 19 when I went in the Army. And they, back in those days, I mean, you didn't have, if you didn't volunteer real quick, well, you was drafted anyway because, you know, everybody had to sign up. And when you got your letter from the government, you opened it up and it said your friends and neighbors have selected you to go into the armed services. So that's the way that went. But actually, I was a senior in high school. I was raised out in Englewood on the other side. So I was raised in Nashville all my life. But
What high school did you go to?
Isaac Litton,
Isaac Litton?
yeah, it's a middle school now.
Oh, okay.
It was one of the powerhouses in those days out in the MBA. But yeah, I was raised right on the Gallatin Road. I never knew any other place to live until when I got in the Army in 19, we lived there. But then after I come back, well, you know, I made a mistake of going to Gallatin, but anyway, that's...
If I could ask you,
yeah, that's right. You can...
Could you please state your full name and your birth date for me?
Sam B. Langham
Yes, sir.
Jr. And what else? And
What was your birth date?
my first,
Your birth date?
September the 3rd, 1923, which makes me 96 years old.
And you said you were raised in Englewood. Were you born in Nashville?
Yep. Born in St. Thomas Hospital when it was on Church Street.
All right. And I know you mentioned your father was a World War I veteran. Could you tell us a little bit about both of your parents?
Well, he was a World War I veteran, and I think he spent close to 2 years in. He got gassed in France, and actually my grandfather, his father, died in 1953 at the age of 102. He was a drummer boy in the Civil War here. Ain't many people talk to somebody in the Civil War, but I did. And he lived on the corner of 10th and Farthing in East Nashville. And actually my grandfather was, back when Nashville was smaller, I mean before they brought in all this county stuff, he was the only councilman from East Nashville.
Wow.
But East Nashville was a whole lot, I mean, Nashville was a whole lot smaller than it is today. I mean, the city limits, I mean, didn't go out all that far.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody ever told you or not, but we have one of the best mass transit systems in Nashville of anywhere. You've seen the electric streetcars in yours? They were all over Nashville. You missed one being done in 15 minutes. Most people didn't have a car when I was a kid. Because like today, there are more cars in the state of Tennessee than within the whole United States. I mean, most people didn't own a car.
Right.
But that's the way that was. Yeah, like I said, we've been married 72 years. August 3rd. She's a RN. She graduated from Protestant Hospital back in 1947.
Okay.
So we've been very, very lucky so far.
Absolutely.
But it's been 4 months now since I had all that problem. I can go out in the yard. I mean, we both still drive, but and then all of a sudden I got two things that hit me, and both of them are real bad. So I'm not in the best of shape right now.
Right.
And it's kind of irritating to have to walk with one of these things.
I see that.
You can just go ahead and start with questions. Or
Sure. Could you tell us a little bit about your mother?
my mother died in 1963. She died in 1963. And but she ate a whole lot, and she was way overweight. And the thing of it is, 2 weeks before she died, she just went to bed one night and then wake up the next morning, which that's the way I'd like to go. And like I say, she was 62. My dad, well, they both died in the same house. We lived on Thompson Lane, but he died in 1974, the day before Christmas Eve. But like I say, his father lived to be 102. I had a cousin made it to 103. I don't think I'll make it that far. I'm not anxious to do it anyway.
Did you have any siblings? Only child.
I'm the only child. That way when anybody dies in the family, you don't have to worry about it.
So, to my
He's
under,
also selfish.
so to my understanding, you grew up during the Great Depression.
Oh, yeah.
And what was that
Yeah,
like?
Well, we didn't realize it was as bad as it really was because it never been, you know, as good as it is. I mean, as far as money and stuff's concerned. But the one difference is I lived through the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And you take the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and the early 60s, you had a heck of a lot better class of people than what you got running around out there today. I mean, if somebody told you something, you could depend on it. People like today would rather lie to you than tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. And I still don't understand these people going around and buying blue jeans with holes in the knees. I mean, to me, that's plain stupidity. I mean, really.
I
I just don't understand that. And running around and getting tattoos all the way. We didn't have that back in my
Bad.
That tattoo stuff, you go back 40 years and you didn't see hardly any of that. Now people put that junk all over their face and everything. They have no idea what it's going to be like when they get older, if they live to get older. But it's too bad that we don't have a president like Franklin Roosevelt and a general like George Patton. Did you ever see the movie Patton?
Yeah, it's been a while, but yes.
I was in General Patton's Third Army. I saw him one time. He cussed me out then. Didn't have my helmet on. We was moving up through France, and me and a buddy of mine sitting on the tailgate. It was 6x6, and had our helmets thrown up in the back of the truck. And then we saw this. He had a 42 Packard, which that was the Cadillac of those days, Packard. And saw the 3 stars on the front. He got beside us, rolled the window down and hollered, "Get them GD helmets on." That ain't quite the way he said it. And Raul almost fell off the truck trying to get his helmet.
Wow.
Was
I
that your
always
only,
told her that, and after she saw the movie, she stopped believing. But
was that your only interaction with him?
that was the only, I mean, you didn't have, I mean, most people didn't have no interaction with him, so. And it just so happened that it was the way that it did with me, you know. But like I said, to my estimation, he's probably one of the best generals we ever had. Franklin Roosevelt, as far as I'm concerned, was the best president. I mean, he could get things done. I mean, but that's just the way it goes.
So you said you went to Isaac Litton High School?
Yeah.
Were you involved in any sports or extracurriculars at the
No.
time? Let's see.
Sports wasn't as big then as it is today either, you know. I mean, it was just like high school football. I mean, you could go out. Yeah, Jack Eward lived up the street from me, and he was on the team, and he kept wanting me to come out. I told him, "Well, I'll be there this afternoon." Didn't take me but 15 minutes to find out that wasn't for me. Because I wasn't, the most I've ever weighed is 160 pounds. So, you know, and that kind of weight you don't do too good in. And hitting big guys when you're a little guy.
Yeah.
You said you were 18 whenever the bombing in Pearl Harbor happened.
I had just turned 18.
What was that
on
like?
December the 1st, 1941. No,
What was
I mean,
the...
December the 7th, I'm sorry.
Sure. What would you say people's reactions were when you heard the news?
Well, actually, a lot of people thought we'd just go ahead and slap them down in a couple of days, but that ain't the way it worked. And we had to, everything had to be rationed. I mean, shoes, sugar, meat, clothes, gasoline.
Where are your ration tickets?
Huh?
Where are your ration tickets?
I don't know whether, I think I've got another book, but I've got all kinds of, in a book over there. But I know one thing on gasoline, everybody had to have a sticker to go on your windshield. And an A sticker, that was, you just use car for pleasure. You got 4 gallons a week, and they give you tickets, and that's the only way you had to have them tickets to get that gas. And so there wasn't a, at that time, I mean, that was, no doctors and stuff like that. See, when I was a kid, you called a doctor to come to the house. And you didn't bother with the doctor unless you really needed him, like people run have checkups and all that now. But yeah, I was lucky during the whole war, though. Like I was gonna, let's see. Actually, when we were sent to Atherstone, just out of Birmingham, in England, when and had Quonset huts and the big pot-bellied stoves in each end, and we stayed there about I think probably maybe a couple of months, and then our captain told us to pack all our stuff. We was going down to South Wales, where we was going to be into a real army camp. And we pulled in there, and the commanding officer came out and said, "I'm full. We ain't got no room for you." So I don't know what our captain, how he got in touch with somebody in Washington. They marched us up and down the street in this little town of Caerphilly, South Wales, and any British family, they would give an American soldier a room and a bath, so the government paid them rent. Man, that was great. I mean, I had my own room and bath. Went to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, got off by 4:30. I said, man, this is better than home. And those are the people that I lived with that owned the house.
What were their names?
King, and actually, we had Army reunions. I can't remember which one that is, but that's all of my outfit, and me and one other boy, the only two left alive out of all of them.
Wow.
And this was in Fort Lewis, Washington. We had them big tents there. That was just when I was leaving to go in the Army, right there. Yeah, there I am on the golf course in South Wales. There's a swimming pool. So, I mean, man, well, I said, I can't believe this. And I've never heard of it. And my dad thought we was in some kind of secret outfit. He said, ain't nothing like that. But
So you enjoyed your time in England and Wales?
I enjoyed my time there. The only thing is that, excuse me, they captain called us in from our homes one day and told us to go home, pack our stuff, and be ready to go in 2 hours. And so we didn't know what the heck was going to happen. And next thing I know, we're on an LCI crossing the English Channel. And we landed on Utah Beach, but we're not on D-Day. They'd already pushed them back some when we did land. And but it's hard enough going off, waiting to show off that darn boat. Nobody's shooting it. I don't know how they did with them guys shooting at it. Got your full field pack, rifle, and all that stuff. So.
Now you said you spent some time in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia.
That's where I was inducted at.
Inducted. What was that process like?
Well, they just carried us down there, and then that's where they sent you out from different places, you know. I mean, that's that was all that was for. We didn't spend enough time at it even. But that's where we were all inducted.
And then you went to Oregon?
Huh?
And then you went to Oregon?
Well, we went up through to, the troop train went up to Chicago, and we went through Michigan and Indiana and Ohio. And it wound up that half of our outfit was made up of Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. And the other half was Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. We fought the Civil War tonight. And then went to Portland. And then we used to have Army up until 2009. We had an Army reunion, and it got to be where that everybody was gone. Now, me and Sam, what was his last name? He lives in Thomasville, Georgia. We're the only two.
Phelps.
Huh?
Phelps.
Sam Phelps. He lives in Thomasville, Georgia. And they both got the first same name, and both of us got married on the same day,
Oh, wow.
August 30th, 1947. So I'm gonna put things this way. I didn't turn old till I turned 90. I could do everything I took and do. We're still living in a 3-bedroom house, and I turned 90. But I got to losing my balance, and I really didn't know what was happening, but I kept falling. And finally, I realized I just couldn't do stuff as quick as I used to. And after I realized that, why I didn't fall, and now I'm a whole lot slower. But anyway,
Well, he's really been very sick.
yeah, I retired from the post office 41 years ago this month, 1978. And then that was when the limousines were getting started, and it was a go on my route. Had 3 Cadillac limousines, and I asked him, what the heck you do with those? And he told me, and I said, well, I'm looking for a part-time job. I'll hire you today because you lived here all your life, carried mail. I drove limousines for 23 years. It's a whole lot more fun job. Paid about 3 times as much as the post office. I mean, a part-time job, it paid more than the one you was working at.
Right.
The only thing about working at the post office was I retired. When I retired, it was under the federal government, the Treasury Department. And we are very lucky because I got Medicare, and I still have my National Association of Letter Carriers insurance. Anything Medicare don't pay, they pay. So I go to the hospital, the doctor, costs nothing. So I looked out that I worked at the post office. Yeah, I worked there actually 28 years. And in 1978, they come around, if you had 30 years and turned 55, which I turned 55 on, had 28 years. But they also gave any Army time towards your retirement. I had 3 years in the Army, so that made me 31 years. I told them, like Johnny Paycheck, you can check this job and shove it.
Well, that worked out for you, didn't it?
Yeah, that was, the things that I really didn't even dream of, that, they seem to work out pretty good. I've had a real excellent, as far as I'm concerned, life, except for these last month.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a little story. He used to tell our children, you better, watch your money and don't be wasting money. I remember seeing these people when Mother and I'd be driving downtown to pick up Daddy from the bank. So that was his depression life.
That was one thing. My dad did have a job when the Depression hit. He worked for American National Bank down 8th and Broad. And actually, he must have been one of the better employers. But when the Depression hit, he got a cut in pay. He got the cut in pay as on the same day where you instead of getting a cut in pay, you'd get a raise. But he was lucky to have a job.
Yeah.
Because it was.
Well, he got to be made a supervisor, didn't he?
Huh?
He got to be made a supervisor and cut and pay.
Yeah, that's right. He got a promotion and a cut and pay the same day. That don't usually happen.
No.
But see, if you haven't lived in that time zone, why? And actually, I learned to drive when I was 11 years old.
Wow.
On a 33 Ford. It was only a year old. And I've had driver's license since 1947. Drove mail trucks for 28 years. Well, I drove C&R car in the Army.
We've been 1947.
Huh?
One 1947.
What?
37.
Yeah, 1937 when I got the driver's license. I've had them ever since. And like I said, I drove mail trucks for 28 years, drove limousines for 23 years. You know how many automobile wrecks I've had?
How many?
One. I got off the road and a guy come off the road with a Jeep and hit me. And like I say, the guy that I worked for with limousines, he also had the contract for delivering Peterbilt tractors. They built out here. And he had the contract for this. So he asked me one day to go out and see if I could drive one of them. I said, and I drove it. And, oh, you're fine. So anytime he got home, he hollered, I might go to Jackson, Mississippi, or to Atlanta, or to Memphis, or, just a short haul. Those things are fun, but I wouldn't want to do it for a living. But I know why they feel like a king of the road.
Yeah.
But
Did you like driving when you got your license?
I can't hardly remember not being able to drive. I mean, so you could get special license at 14 in those days, because a lot of kids had to drive in the farm and stuff. and I lied a little bit and got my license. When I got my license, you had to go downtown. You know what the Memorial Building is now? Well, Capitol Boulevard used to run all the way to the Capitol. That's the reason they call it Capitol. That all that area there, that wasn't even. That was a whole different ball game. That area there, and when you go up there, you park and you have to go inside. Highway Patrol was in there, and they'd give you written tests, and then they'd go out and ride with you. You had to be able to parallel park a car before they'd give you a license. And I could parallel park a limo.
Oh, wow.
It's impressive.
But yeah, I drove 178 people that you would recognize. I was Billy Ray Cyrus' first driver, Kathy Matea's first driver, Kentucky Headhunter's first driver, Toby Keith's first driver. I had the Mercury record account. That was one thing that helped me. And Warner Brothers. And like I say, I drove Dolly Parton, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, B.J. Thomas, Barbara Walters, Bill Cosby. Tell you a funny one about Bill Cosby. I mean, back in the 1980s, of course, he wouldn't ride in a limousine. You had to pick him up in a four-door Lincoln Town Car. And you drive right up on the runway in them days if they come in on a private plane. And I drove up and he got in the car and we started driving off and he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Sam." He said, "What's your last name?" And I said, "Langham." And he said, "Mr. Langham, you know where we're going?" I said, "Well, my papers, they take you about anywhere you want to go." He said, "How about New York City?" I said, "You want to go 40 or 65? He said, "Oh, no, I was just kidding. You really know where we're going?" I said, "I'm driving the car, you know." He said, "Yes, I know where we're going." And actually, he was here to do, I had the Starwood amphitheater account too. Anything at Starwood, why, but actually, I was Billy Ray's first driver, and Billy Ray was one of the best ones. I drove him for 4 years. He was I can show you pictures if you're interested in looking at anything in the thing, but yeah, I'd been in Dolly Parton's house, Barbara Mandrell's house. The reason I was in Barbara Mandrell's house, I took Barbara Walters out there when they did that special on her wreck that she had. Never spoke to me that first time, but I never cared for her as much as it was. And I've eaten breakfast with Johnny and June Cash. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. It wasn't because they invited me. I mean, they did invite me, but I mean, the limousines was a fun deal.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I went to 3 Super Bowls, 2 in New Orleans, 1 in Pontiac, Michigan. And I got paid to go, took a limousine, they paid all my expenses, and I just drove. Well, actually, it was the president of General Electric most of the time. And then I went to 12 Kentucky Derbies, all expenses paid, to sit and drive people. And you know, the first time I went to New Orleans, and I didn't know about New Orleans, it's kind of hard to drive and take people around, you know. But, yep, I've had a fun life. If I go tomorrow, so what? I've done about everything I wanted to do, been about everywhere I wanted to go. And believe it or not, I was one of the first people to hold Miley when she was a baby.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, Billy Ray and I had just come in from a concert, and Tish had brought Miley. That's the first time I even saw her. And Billy was really excited, and he wanted me to hold her. I said, "Ain't much on holding baby." But Billy was one of the, a lot of people, holler about him, but he was one of the best ones I ever drove. He and Kathy Mattea, I think. Actually, I'm in one of Kathy Mattea's videos.
Really?
18 wheels and a dozen roses. They paid me to sit at a table drinking coffee like a truck driver. Weird situations that you just, yeah. But well, maybe I've talked enough. I'll let you ask me anything that you want to.
Well, sure. Well, you said you were in the 3rd Army. Did you choose to go in the Army? Was that the branch that you were looking to go in?
When you went in those days, they picked out what you could request us, like me and Paul. Paul Bronner went at the same time. We wanted to be together. We asked to be together. They sent him to St. Louis and sent me to Portland, Oregon. So they didn't. See, World War I, that was one of the big mistakes. Like my dad, most of the people in his outfit was from around Nashville. If you had a bunch of them get killed, that really hurts one area at the time. And that's the reason the Second World War, you didn't see none of that, bunches of them. It was together.
Could you tell us a little bit about the specific unit you were in?
The unit I was in?
Yes, sir.
Well, actually, we started out as a 92nd Battalion. There was Company A, Company B, Company C, Company D, and we were in Company D, and then there were 4 platoons to each company. And Company A and B, all of a sudden they disappeared. And the rumor was they got sent to North Africa. That was when we was up in Oregon, of course. Mm-hmm. And so, and then I don't know what happened to C, but all of a sudden that was the only thing left. So when we, from then on, our company was known as the 634th QM Company. That was just, and that was the only one in the whole United States. I never heard of another company. And that was a trial deal, and I guess that was the beginning and the ending, and I didn't have to wind up to be. But yeah, when I told my dad what kind of outfit I was in, he just didn't believe it. He thought it was some kind of secret thing. He said he'd never heard of it. So, but yeah, my dad got gassed in World War I in France. So,
Did he have any reaction when you went and joined the Army?
Well, I mean, he knew that that'd be going. I mean, which actually I think he was, well, in his 40s. I know he went to the VA and he was trying to go in to be, because he'd be an officer instead of a, but he wasn't healthy enough to go. Like I say, he got gassed. He was drawing a pension for being gassed in World War I. But
now, did you receive any specific training when you joined your unit?
well, we went through infantry training like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in other words, that's one thing. Just like 3 of our companies, well, I don't know what happened to them, but boom, boom, boom. You just never knew what was going to happen. I mean, that was the thing I hated. They called you and say, pack your stuff and be ready to go in 2 hours, and have no idea where you're going. Because even when we went in and wound up in Portland, Oregon, they never told us where we was going. Like I said, we had a bunch of us from down here, and then we went to Chicago and went through Michigan and Ohio, and we picked up a bunch of recruits or soldiers there, and then we all wound up in Portland, Oregon. But I hadn't even been out of the state of Tennessee but twice in my life when I went in the Army, so that ought to really tell you something.
Yeah.
But I've been lucky. I've been in every state in the Union, including Alaska and Hawaii. I've been on both coasts of Mexico, both coasts of Canada. I've been to Costa Rica, Colombia, St. Martin, been to New Zealand, Australia. Spent 2 years in Europe seeing all the... Yeah, when the war ended, we was in Munich, Germany. We took over a Hitler Youth building. We took over whatever we wanted in those days. We took over a Hitler Youth building for our, headquarters and everything. And then all I was doing was kind of waiting to, come home. They sent me to the 79th Division because they were supposed to come home quick. And it wound up coming home last after sending me to that darn thing. That was in Frankfurt, Germany. I spent time in Frankfurt, Germany, and Munich, Germany. But so that is a pretty good indication of what. And I was lucky that I never got hurt. I got the European Theater ribbon with 4 battle stars, so I was never on the front lines, but I was never on the back line. I was always in between. We was always with a field hospital, one way or the other. I mean, as close as we could be to them. And like I said, I think I told you we had a guy in our outfit that was a plumber, and he rigged up showers on them. So when nurses come over, we'd have to take a shower.
Yeah.
You'd be out in the middle of, out in the middle of nowhere, but and have, electricity and stuff. That's just kind of weird.
Were you and the other men in your outfit close friends?
Well, we had an Army reunion every year. Yeah, it worked out. Even though half of it was north, half of it was south. I mean, we wound up being, pretty good friends, all of it. And yeah, like I said, I've had a great life, and so anyway. Hey Martha, can you bring that limousine book over here, and I'll show 'em a couple little things in there. It's over in that shelf. I couldn't bring it over here. Huh? That's right, I just didn't get
That's
hit
all
with
that's
it.
any good for, just knocking around.
Yeah, I belong to the American Legion Post 281 out here, and we've got another World War II veteran there that May the 15th, he turned 100. That's Max Anderson, and he's in American Legion 281. He still gets around. I'd say he celebrated his 100th birthday May the 15th. But I'm not going to try to catch him. But actually, I was getting around a little better than him. Now I think he's getting around a little better than me. But hey, it's over here on the chair, Martha, on your chair. Over on the chair by the desk. Laying in that chair where you got your sewing stuff. I can't hardly carry one of them big books, and now I got a bunch of.
But you think I can.
Huh?
I said, but you think I can.
Is it too heavy for you?
Need any help?
Yeah, I'll remember it now almost.
Let me get that for you.
It's there, he will pick up.
That's not something that. That. Yeah, this is one thing I just kept here because you can see where Billy wrote in there.
June 7th, 1994. Sammy, thanks for being my true friend, Billy Ray Cyrus. P.S. Love you, Dad.
Well, I had told him, somebody asked me if I was his dad because I was sitting waiting on him, and I told him no. So he wrote that in there. But yeah, Billy, he's got a 550 acre farm out at Thompson Station. And I had a four-wheeler, and he had a four-wheeler, and I used to take my four-wheeler out there on the trailer. He and I'd ride around the farm, just, you know, that's the type of person he was. But
Do you all still keep in touch?
huh?
You and Billy? Not really.
No, I hadn't talked to him in many years now, because they moved to. So there's a Kentucky headhunters. They signed all of their. Hey, you know who that is?
Oh yeah, familiar.
Yeah. How did you two meet?
Well, the funny thing was I had the Vanderbilt Plaza Hotel exclusive too. And I was out there to pick somebody up, and she come walking up, and the one that was in charge of the deal, I said, man, I said, there's Hilary. He said, I'm glad you did that. Said, it's just, that's a look-alike. That's, see, she wrote that on there, but she looked like Hilary. I thought that's who it was. Which I never cared for Hilary. But, well, this is all a bunch of, had one, oh, there's Billy, and there's Steve Miller. He's the one that tried to break in that achy breaky heart. He's one who was the one from Mercury. And there's Billy up here. But let's see. Well, there's just so many of these like, I remember we was backstage when I first went to work in the limousine business. Jim, see, there's Billy and me. And see that jacket? That's a friend of mine, but Billy gave me that for, it had some gave all on the back of it. I've still got it back there, black satin jacket. It's 1993, I think it was. He gave me that for my birthday. The Oak Ridge Boys gave me a jacket. Charlie Daniels gave me a jacket. And Billy Ray gave me that one. And there's somebody else that gave me one, but I can't remember who it was. But this, but anyway, that's about the extent of all this stuff. And yeah, I've got a picture in here. Me and, well, Roy Acuff, that's the first time I ever even met him, was backstage. And Jim Holland said he wanted a picture of me and Roy. Roy, I put both arms around me and got a picture of her. And then I've got one of that black singer that died, that woman that I carried her around looking for houses, and she's called me, wanted to make a picture. It's weird, you know. I mean, like backstage of the opera, that's the only place I ever went. I never went out in the front or nothing. I mean, you know. And yeah, I used to drive Tom T. Hall too. I remember pulled up at in front of the Opera Inn Hotel. Tom T. got out, and these two little girls rushed up on his autograph. And so he signed something, and so they come flying over me, want my autograph. I said, for what? You're his driver. I said, so what? And so anyway, I went ahead and signed it, and I told him later. I didn't really like Tom T. at first, but we got to be pretty good friends. And I told him, I said, did they come there? He said, well, what'd you do? I said, well, I signed them. He said, it's the best thing you can do, and you get rid of them. But, yeah, like Waylon Jennings, I was taking him as manager down at Channel 5 early one morning for some kind of national broadcast. And, you know, you hear all the stuff that they do when they're back there. And I remember Waylon, he told it like it was. He said, I'm getting so damn tired hearing Barbara Mantrell getting up there saying, I love you, I love you. If you don't love him, people from the bottom records, just like I do. And that's exactly it, you know. He's the one guy that told it like it was. And I happened to have back, you know, after they've been on a while, they get to what they call has-beens. And I'd driven Johnny Cash for, you know, a number of times. And so anyway, he'd gotten kind of be a has-been, so he had three of the big shots from Mercury out in New York come down. June had a big breakfast for him. He was trying to get back on the record label. And whenever we went to a house, like Barbara Mandrell's house, I went through it. I went through Dolly's house, and I went through Johnny's house. And I was just going through looking around, but I took these three guys out there for the breakfast. I started to walk out the front door, and June back behind me said, come on back, ain't nobody leaving you hungry. And I sat right next to John Carter Cash and had my breakfast. Wow. I mean, it was just by accident, you know, and just little odds and ends of that type that you get. My last limo trip was right after they blew the buildings down in New York. You couldn't rent a car, there had no planes flying. And the guy that owned the limousine service I worked for then said, hey, you like to make long trips, don't you? I said, yeah. He said, how about New Rochelle, New York tomorrow? And I said, what? I was 78 then. And I called Martha, and you're 78 years old. Yeah, I'm just driving. But anyway, after a bit, the guy was in San Antonio, Texas. He rented a limousine to take him from San Antonio to Dallas, another from Dallas to Nashville, and then we were supposed to take him on to New Rochelle, New York. And he asked me if I wanted to do it. I said, I asked him, I said, well, what was going to pay? And so he's allowed to give you $200 a day and pay all the expenses. I said, man, you forgot me. All they do is drive. And it happened to be the CEO of Ethan Allen Furniture Company. It cost him $7,000 to get from San Antonio, Texas to New Rochelle. I took him to the Pennsylvania-Virginia border, and they had a car come down from New York to get him. Yeah, all kind of strange things like that. You just never knew what was. There's one thing I'll tell you: driving a limousine, you see everything, and I leave nothing out. Nothing. I mean, just by the time I thought I'd seen everything, was something else had come up.
Something else would
Yeah.
happen, and
Well, is there anything that I missed that you wanted to ask
If-
me?
You talk your arm off.
well, if we could go back a little bit, talk
Okay.
a little bit more about
Anything,
your
anything you want to ask? Just,
military service. What was it like when you arrived in Normandy? You said you arrived on Utah Beach.
yeah. Well, it's a feeling you've never had before. I mean, you know, like I said, when we went, we didn't know we was going to go across the English Channel. And I mean, we've been living with people in private homes. I mean, like that's a big change. I mean, because you're sleeping in foxholes and pup tents after that. You know, I mean, that was just a whole complete change. So I had 2 or 3 of that would have a real good deal, and then wham, all of a sudden.
No, thank you.
No, I'm all right. Thank you, though.
But that's that's just the way it was.
Were you involved in any major battles or major events?
No, I was in the Battle of Bulge, but I mean, I wasn't actually hand to hand fighting it. But the captain come around. I mean, the lieutenant come around one day and gave us a 10-minute order to blow up our equipment. That was when the Germans had broken through. But then the next morning, the sun come out and the planes come out, and that was the end of that push. From then on, and see, the thing of it is, General Patton wanted to go to Moscow, and they had to take the gas away to keep him from going. I mean, they just cut the gas off because he was intending to do that. But to my estimation, he's probably one of the very best generals we ever had. He was a prima donna, but he just seemed to know, just like Franklin Roosevelt, when he was president, he got things done that well, if he hadn't have gotten them done, you'd have had a revolution in this country. I mean, he started the CCCs, which Civilian Conservation Corps. That got, you know, younger people a place to stay with clothes and food. And then the WPA, which we called them, we piddled around, but anyway, if he hadn't started those, you'd have had a revolution. I mean, it just, under the presidents I lived under, I've lived under about half of them. Franklin Roosevelt was head and shoulders above anything. I mean, really, he could get things done. He didn't go around and start hollering at all of them and everything. He just told them what he was going to do, and he didn't go around calling names like that screwball you got up there now does. I mean, I voted for him, but that won't ever happen again. But I mean, well, a lot of those Republicans back then said he was an idiot. I think they were pretty well right.
Yeah.
I know when he was just talking about running about
We
president,
may be talking about this.
I thought that was the biggest joke that I ever heard in my life, was him running for. And if anybody else but Hilary Clinton been running, he wouldn't have been elected. But anyway, regardless of how it goes, I know that at 96, I ain't gonna be here too much longer, so I ain't gonna have to worry with it. The people that is one's going to have to worry about it.
What are some of the most vivid memories of your time spent in Europe?
No, I mean, I can remember things if I, you know.
Do you remember the day that victory was declared in Europe?
You mean victory in Europe?
Yes.
Yeah, I can just remember them, you know, bringing it out. I mean,
Do you remember what
but
city
we
you were in?
I don't remember. I know I was in close to Munich when that's what we, like I said, we took over Hitler Youth Camp. I mean, we always took over a nice building and stuff to, you know, because we was in charge, period. And that worked out great. So we found something we wanted, we just took it.
What was that interaction like with the German citizens?
Well, I mean, the German citizens in those days, just the average citizen, I'll tell you a little story on this, because a friend of mine, when we were in Munich there, they made him mess sergeant. I was just a PFC, and he asked me one day if I'd like to have the job of see what we had DPs, displaced persons that washed up pots and pans and stuff. We just had to have a soldier to make sure they got everything done and done right. And so I told them, yeah, I'd take that. They got me out of guard duty and the whole 9 yards. I got to, and like when they'd serve meals, people used, the soldiers all used their own mess gear, like the plates and the knife, fork, everything hung on one thing. But when you come out, you dumped your scraps in one big thing, and then you had a big soapy water that you shook that up and down, and then 2 wrenches, and that was it. And I happened to look, and there was 2 little blonde-headed girls, about 5 years old, grabbing scraps off of those guys when they had off their plates. So I made them understand they could go home and get some kind of something to carry it in, because you'd have maybe one of them big stewers that big and have that much mashed potatoes or green beans or whatever. And so what I did, they'd come back with stuff, and I gave them the food. Well, the next meal, I had about 20 people down there waiting to get. And then it just increased and increased, but I always made sure that they were number 1 in the line, period. And one of them brought her big sister with her one time, nice looking blonde, and which I never dreamed about them speaking English. And so I don't know, I made some wisecracks one time, then she come back in perfect English, and I felt like an idiot. And then I always made sure they were number 1 in line. And so I kept trying to get a date with her. She said her daddy didn't want her going out with no American soldier. And so then one day when they come down there, she said her daddy wanted to meet me because I've been feeding them. And so I went up and met him. He didn't speak English, and I didn't speak German, but he even had a motorcycle that he offered to let me use because he couldn't get that gas for it. So I was the only guy in the outfit that had a motorcycle.
Fancy.
That worked out great. And so anyway, then after a bit, I got transferred over to Frankfurt to come home with the 79th Division. And on that deal, I led a 700 vehicle convoy from Frankfurt, Germany to Marseille, France, to catch a boat home. And it took 3 days to come 700 miles. I mean, we had a bunch of vehicles, and they just lined them up down on the field there when we come in, and then a couple of days, they took us down, put us on the ship, ready to come home. I came home on a Liberty ship, which left on December the 1st, 1945, and we landed in New York on December the 21st. 21 days to come across the Atlantic Ocean. The Queen Mary passed us about 3 times, I think. But
What was it like on the ship?
rough, because it was a Liberty ship, and we got caught in a North Atlantic storm. I mean, you'd get washed overboard real easy if you wasn't careful. The ship we went over on, I went over on a USS Anna Arundel, took us, I forget it, it wasn't near that many, but it was a big convoy of ships, Like I say, a convoy, your fastest ship can only travel has to be as slow as your slowest ship, because that is stay together, But, yeah, that's about it. Another thing, when I was giving that food away, the captain that we had got sent back to the United States, and we got a captain that hadn't been a captain that long to come over there. And the second thing was he was Jewish, so he didn't care for the Germans. So first thing he was going to do, when I was giving that food out, he came around and told me to take that food and dump it in the creek. And I thought, I said, there ain't no way. I said, these little kids, no, they didn't have anything to do with that. I said, if you want, he got a court martial me for this. I said, if you want to dump in the creek, you need to find somebody else. And he looked at me and he said, you feel that strong about it? I said, yeah. He said, anything happens, it's your responsibility. I said, that's fine, no problem. And he and I have become friends after that. I almost run over him on the motorcycle. And I wasn't even supposed to have. But well, you find all kind of strange things happening. That's just like in 1974, I came home from work and the phone was ringing and I answered the phone. This woman said, is Sam Langham Jr. there? And I said, well, this is he. And she said, are you in your late 40s? I said, yeah. And I began thinking it's going to be a survey of some sort. She said, were you in Europe during? I said, yep. And she said, were you in Germany? I said, yeah. She said, were you in Munich? I said, yep. She said, is anybody you remember from then? I said, yeah, the old gal I used to call Blondie. And it was her.
Really?
And I talked for a few minutes, and I thought she may be in Nashville or something. So I said, where are you? I'll come pick you up. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She had married some officer in it before that, and, you know, had 3 kids, and then her husband died. And she just came through Nashville and looked in the telephone book and saw my number, so she called.
Oh my gosh.
And so we went down to visit, and actually we had a reunion in, what was it, it's down in Florida. What was the name of it? It's on the beach.
Cocoa Beach?
Huh?
Cocoa Beach?
Yeah, Cocoa Beach. And so, you know, she and Martha became friends and all, and we was going to have a reunion. Martha invited her and her younger sister that I had started feeding them to come to the reunion, so they did. One guy said, Sam Langham, the only guy bring his wife and his girlfriend to.
Same time.
And then, but she and the little sister got killed a few years ago. They was in a car wreck, bad car wreck down in.
Do you remember their names?
Yeah.
Her name was Jean.
Huh?
Yes. Her name was Jean Smith.
Yeah.
Her name she went right here.
And then
She had a German name.
I mean, her name, her first name when first met her down there. I know that's when I called her Blondie. It was Waltrout was her first name. I mean, I don't know how to spell it, but that's the way it sounded. And I never used that. I just called her Blondie. And then later she seen Blondie and Splinties, and she thought I was using that to call her Blondie.
And her sister's name was Eve.
If I can ask,
And she,
You can ask anything you want.
was your company or division ever involved in finding concentration camps in Europe? Did you ever get close to those, or did you know about them?
I got pictures of Dachau. I mean, bodies stacked up like cordwood. But I mean, actually, these are German pictures that were captured. I mean, that's just like that picture I've got of Adolf Hitler. And but I never even thought nothing about it. But now people tell me, well, it probably you guys that are really interested in it, that bring. I mean, the only other souvenir I brought back, I've got a German Luger with a scabbard, with an eagle and a swastika on the side. And my daughter in Kansas City wanted that, and my daughter here didn't care about it. So I just told her, I said, when I go, you can have it, you know. And my dad brought back Army 45 from World War I. He gave that to my daughter. She's big on pistols and guns and you know, things of that sort.
Did people often find souvenirs to take home with them?
Oh, there was a lot of them guys had all kind of souvenirs. There were some of them, every time they got a chance, they'd take stuff apart and mail it home. I never even thought about nothing like that. And the pistol's one thing I did want, so that's the only thing I did. And I've still got my Eisenhower jacket. I don't know what happened to the rest of the uniform. I mean, over them years, it just, but,
What was the reaction of the people when you came back to the United States?
well, it wasn't, I mean, we came back, you know, so long after the thing that there wasn't, I mean, just the people that, you know, were around us that, like my mom and dad, they were glad to see me. But I mean, it wasn't no big thing like it was on the original. I mean, if you was here on VE Day, it's fine. But after that, it wasn't. And you know, the Vietnam veterans really got. I mean, those boys. I mean, they didn't ask to go in there; they were put in there. But so many people that you know. But that I.
Nashville was a wild night that night. They was over.
On VE Day? What was it like? Were you in the city when that happened?
Yes, I was living in the dormitory at Baptist Hospital at that time, and I was working night duty. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, somebody came on and said that the war was over. And I went home and slept, and I got up, and the dormitory was empty, except 2 or 3 girls were still there. And we walked downtown, which is not that far, you know. And we got down there, and the streets were completely filled. And I can remember that night more vividly. But then I had the buses couldn't get through. And so I had to walk back to the hospital and go to work at 11 o'clock.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me ask you
There's
this.
one other thing I can mention. When I
Absolutely.
Toyota automobile had their convention at the Opera Down Hotel, and our company got wound up as to going. You know, they call for limousine. I wound up driving Mr. Toyota, and I'd had him 2 or 3 days, and I don't know, we was coming down Bradley Parkway. This was back in the 1980s, and I looked in the rearview mirror and I said, 40 years ago I'd have shot that sucker on sight, and I would have. But, you know, never dreamed about it. And a lot of times those Japanese, they would request, they didn't want no driver from World War II. Because they, you know, they were still, it took me a long time for it even flew with the Japanese cars. I mean, like I said, that you went through the original deal, and so, and the Japanese of my age, you know, group, they were, I mean, they'd kill themselves to kill you. I mean, you know, that's like these, they just had a different outlook on life than what we had. Yeah, I was hoping they'd go ahead and drop a 3rd bomb and sink that island. I mean,
So you have memories of the first 2 bombs being dropped on Japan?
Yeah. I was hoping for a 3rd one.
Did you know anyone that served in the Pacific?
Yeah, well, there's some of my friends that, you know, that, but that was one thing I never got any part of. The closest I got was Portland, Oregon, and but that was a whole different ball game. I mean, I'm glad I went to the European. I mean, things turned out a whole lot better. I mean, I had some bad deals, but I got some good deals too, you know. There was 2 of the guys in our outfit that married girls from Philly, South Wales. And actually, well, this daughter that lives here, she used to work for US Air, and we could fly free. So we flew back to Heathrow, and I rented a car and drove back to Atherstone, where you ever tried to drive on the wrong side of the car and the wrong side of the street? And I drove back to Atherstone, and I drove back to Philly, and they don't tear the towns down. They don't have the room to tear stuff down, and like they do here. And yeah, we drove back to those, and then actually we flew to Sydney, Australia. I rented a car there, and I drove from Sydney to Canberra to Melbourne to Adelaide. I had friends in Adelaide, South Australia, that wanted us to come visit, and we found a good deal where stayed in hotels in different places and had a rental car. But you don't do no daydreaming when you're driving there. I mean, you do. You done had a. I know when we had timeshare, and we really traded around. We stayed in a old castle in Stratford-on-Avon in England, and I remember we was down in a rec room, and there was a guy all bandaged up down there, and some guy walked in that told his name. He said, I got you another rental car. He said, take that damn thing back. I ain't driving no cars here. And because he gotten hurt. But but actually I drove a mail truck on the wrong side of the car, but not the wrong side of the street. Mm-hmm. If you don't watch what you're doing, if you're driving on the left-hand side, your automatic reaction is to go to the right. Mm-hmm. Boom, you don't hit somebody head on. Mm-hmm. And so that's but yeah, as long as you're on the interstate, it's not too bad either, because you're divided. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I was used to kind of driving on the right side of the car, but I've done a bunch of different things in my lifetime.
Where's your favorite place that you two have visited?
You mean just, I guess Hawaii is about the best place. But see, like I was talking about Billy Ray, we were, he hadn't met Martha yet at this time, and he always called me Sammy, and he said, Sammy, you like to go gambling? I said, well, yeah, a little. He said, well, I'm going to be at Bally's on the Strip. You and your wife come on, says your room sure everything's paid for. So, and that was on New Year's Eve, 1992 or 93, I can't remember which. But, and then he met Martha on that deal, and so then it wasn't too long, we was back home, he asked me, he said, Sammy, you still want to go gambling? I said, what are you talking about? He said, I'm back at Bally's in April. So I said, well, yeah. So we went down with him on that one. And then another time, by golly, he asked me if I wanted to go again. I said, go ahead, because he's in Bally's at August. I mean, that's right on the Strip. That's the, and so we went and stayed. And Martha even got an 8x10 picture of him. He signed when he was backstage on New Year's Eve. And Billy was probably the best of the bunch. But like I said, when they were trying to break in Achy Breaky Heart, they sent me to the airport to pick up contest winners, and I didn't know what the heck the contest was at. And so I picked them up, took them right there in the hotel, and then that evening, Claudia Mercury Records told me I was going to make a trip to Knoxville that night, take the contest winners, and want you to go to Ralph Emery's show and pick up Billy Ray Cyrus. And I said, who in the heck is Billy Ray Cyrus? I didn't have any idea. And I did, and so we went to Knoxville, and Billy and I become friends. We was there for a weekend. And, it just, I like CMA awards or all that stuff. I was his driver for, so I done all of that stuff. Yeah, I had we had the Vanderbilt Plaza Hotel. We had the Music City Sheraton Hotel. We had that thing on Worksboro Road where,
Starwood.
Huh?
Starwood.
Yeah, Starwood. You remember Starwood? I had exclusive on that, so.
Mm-hmm.
And
She's probably too young to go.
we didn't have to worry
Don't
about
think
the
I
drunks,
ever got to
I
go.
mean, a lot of them have to worry about drunks calling in. Well, we had the exclusive on just about on those deals, and like I said, it worked out great. I think the biggest tip that I actually got was I used to drive Jim Ed Norman. He was president of Warner Brothers Records, and all I'd do, they lived in a gated community out there for Harding Place in Hillsborough, and they would holler at me to take them to the airport to come and get them. And if Warner Brothers had a big party, he'd have me bring a limousine down if somebody had to be taken home or something like that. He said, just enjoy the party and be available if needed. So we did that, and so anyway, I used to pick them up, take them to the airport and all that. And so Kim called me one night and it was snowing. She said, "You gonna be able to pick me up in the morning?" I said, "Yeah." And so I picked her up and we was going toward the airport. And I said, "Kim," I said, "where are you going?" She said, "I'm going to Hawaii." I said, "Well, I've been to Hawaii twice, but I'd like to go back and spend me a week on the Big Island." And she said, "Why don't you use our condo?" I said, "What?" She said, "Where I'm going, we got a condo right on the beach at Kona." And I come over and and she told me that wasn't Jim Head. And so anyway, about 2 weeks later, we were in a restaurant on Broad Street, and a bunch of Warner Brothers people were in there. Jim Head, and then he got ready to leave, and I hollered at him. He came over, and I said, "Jim Head, your wife made a deal with me I don't think you know about." He said, "I know about it. When you want to go?" I said, "About the 1st of November." His secretary called next day and said, "He's going to put that thing aside for a week." And I found out later that if I'd had to pay for it, it'd been $2,500 for a week. I mean, it was a big hotel, golf course, all that stuff. Rush Limbaugh even talked
That's
about
a
it.
long time ago.
Yeah, that was 1990,
Well, yeah.
1999, I think.
Well, and now things have changed price-wise.
But I think that was the best tip that I ever got.
Yeah. Sure.
But the thing I liked about limousines was 60% of your salary was in cash. That's when people had. That was one good thing about it. And you know, you
should
just
tell that.
sometimes you get some high rolls, you know.
Don't get that on tape.
You realize they're taping you.
I don't care. I ain't told no lies. So
Well, let me ask you this. When you made your way back to the United States and came back home, was it difficult for you to readjust to civilian life? Was
not
it
like
easy?
they talk about these guys today. I just fell right in. I mean, it didn't seem to. I mean, like I said, had put some kind of. I never had no problems. I mean, on that kind of a deal. And well, the guys today, they're fighting a different kind of bunch of people. They're fighting people that just do anything too. That makes a difference. I mean, so, but actually, I never was no hand-to-hand fighting, which, like World War I, they had a lot of hand-to-hand fighting, bayonets on their rifles, but you didn't see a whole lot of that on this one. I mean, because you had more high-powered, stuff to go with. But no, I never. I mean, I don't know of any guys who was that came back at the time I did. It had too many problems. I mean, we all just seemed to fit in when we left.
Did you end up benefiting from the GI Bill at all at any point?
Well, the only thing I benefited from, they would have been better off. I mean, what they did was fixed it up for the GIs to go to school to get an education. Well, like one guy that I know, he had the typewriter business, but he started a typewriter school. The government paid him, and then he had all these people, and actually I signed up to go to that because they paid you $120 a month, and that was it. And but actually I had saved a part of my laundry route, and I was bringing laundry to Nashville and taking it back. And that was where I was making money at that time. And so I just signed up for that. And then they had the classes at night down on 8th Avenue, right there behind Hume Falls High School. But most of the guys, there's only one went down there to learn and fix typewriters. Well, what is a guy that works on typewriters doing now?
Right.
I mean, the only typewriters you see is the one. They're in a museum somewhere. I mean, but they would have been better off to have given each GI $5,000, if he wanted to go to school, okay. If he didn't want to go, so, and they'd have saved money. Those people that made money out of it was them guys that started all them schools. I mean, there's all kinds of different, like television school, and that was even before TV came here. See, TV came here, what, 1950, I believe it was. I know our next door neighbor was talking about going over to fairgrounds. That was where they was demonstrating and showing how TV really worked. And that was one thing that I did. I bought one of the first ones. And they was expensive, and they got about that big a screen, black and white. You had a piece of furniture the size of that desk over there to put that thing in. And,
How many channels do you think it had?
well, actually, when they first came, if you didn't like Channel 4, forget it, because that was it. What was that guy's name from up, he's the one that had Elvis Presley the first time, from back years ago, but he'd be on Sunday night, and if you didn't want to watch that, you was out of luck. I mean, that was it.
That's it.
What was that guy's name? He was real popular, but he had Elvis Presley first, and but then the next one that come on was, well, see, WSM actually owned WSM TV. I mean, it wasn't the other way around like it is today. And then the next station that come in was Channel 5, which was WLAC radio station. They owned that one. And then it come in, the third one came in was WSIX, and they was on Channel 8, and the national and the public thing was on Channel 2. And then over the years, some reason or other, Channel 8 and WSIX changed, and so that made Channel 2 go to WSIX, and then the public was, but actually the public's station was Channel 2 for a long time. But that was your basic TV in those days. I remember they were talking about, cable and charging you. I said, man, ain't no dang way I'm going to pay for TV when I can get it's a whole different ball game too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that come around that you just really, you never, just don't never say never, because you never know what's going to be.
Sure.
But, like I've said it before, my life was very good. Never had no problems to amount to anything. And the only time that the bad shape I was in was, we was living in Gallatin on the Nashville Pike, and that was when my first child was born. And that was right after I had gone out, lost my business. And
What year was that?
1948, because she was born just about the time when I lost my business. Like I said, we moved in a garage apartment on, if you're familiar with Gallatin, not on Nashville Pike. Like you feature, where the Dodge dealership is out there on Nashville Pike?
I do. It's right by my house.
If you come back toward Gallatin on the same side, you see a house that where you drive under the side. And it was the Freelands, and he owned Atherstone Oil Company. But we was looking for some place to move to. It didn't cost much, and they had a garage apartment, two garages in the backyard, and I mean they had a big house and all that kind of stuff. And what was about 2 rooms, and we got it for $30 a month. And he had a Tennessee walking horse that I could use, ride if I wanted to, and they had vegetables in the garden. So I mean, we come out, and I was hauling laundry back and forth from Nashville. I was doing business with, I can't remember, the Rainbow Laundry, I think it was, that I was bringing the stuff down. I had a 65-35 deal. In other words, I got 35% and they got 65%. So that kind of works out. And then when I found out I get the job post office, why, I had a friend of mine, they gave him the route. But on that laundry business, I had borrowed money from American National Bank to start it, doing a business that I didn't know a whole lot about, because when you have government kind of stuff, that ain't the kind that makes money, And so I borrowed the money, and there was another outfit started to build another laundry up there, and I knew that there wasn't no way. I mean, I was having a hard time as it was, so I came to Nashville and went up to Pete's office, and I told him, I said, Pete, I said, have a hard time meeting those notes. I said, can you lower them a little bit? Oh, no, sir, we can't lower them. You just need to go on back and make it. And about 2 weeks later, I went in, and the boiler broke down on Monday morning, and I think I had about 15 employees. And so I thought, what the heck? I just sent them home, locked the building up, drove to Nashville, went to Pete's office. I said, Pete, you gonna be able to lower them notes? He said, I told you I couldn't. I said, do you know how to run a laundry? He said, no. I said, you better damn sure learn how quick, because this is the keys to mine. I gave him the laundry, they sold it off on the courthouse steps in Galveston. But that was my only experience having your own business. I found out working at the post office, you come out better. It did with me anyway.
He said how mad you were, but you know what? He didn't realize I had just graduated from nursing school when we got married. I had a career. Because I had a baby, but
Yeah.
it was worked out fine.
Yeah, nursing's a stable job to have.
I never had any trouble having a job.
What year did you all get married?
1947. You know, had a train wreck. You know, you get train, you got 2 trains and one of them in there. But actually, when, I did not graduate from high school. I was going to Linton. I was a senior in high school. And back then, everybody got their letter eventually. When you opened it, the words across the top, your friends and neighbors have selected you to go in the armed services. And when they did, on the one I got, they put in a return letter that if I would sign it, I'd get a 6 months deferment because I was a senior in high school. And I hated school, and I told Mama, I said, I'm gone. And so I left, but when I come back, Vanderbilt had a deal some way or another. If you'd go out there and take an exam, and you passed the exam, you got your diploma, not a GED. And I passed it, and I got my diploma 4 years late. But they said if you could pass that exam, you had a high school education. And sometimes you got a little more education than some of them college people.
Right.
But I look at some of these people, and honest to goodness, like I said a while ago, I ain't been able to figure out where in the heck they got the idea to buy clothes with the knees cut out of them. I mean, really, does that make sense to you? And you know what I tell
Marley's like, I own some.
I have some pants that do have several holes in them. Yes, I do.
You know, I don't understand.
Didn't wear them today, though.
I tell them, I said, well, when you go out and buy a new car, why don't you just get your sledgehammer, knock the fenders in, knock the glass out. It'd be the same difference. and I mean, you go back 40 years, you didn't have all these tattoos on people. I mean, like, I've never, and they say that if you've got a tattoo on your arm and those watches you can buy, that those watches won't work. But I don't put that, but ink under your skin, I don't think is good, you know. That's just like they had what was on the program last night? Oh, it was on old Dr. Phil, where these women go out and they call them, they have injections put into their rear end. And man, did you watch that program? Man, I mean, it was.
Seen it here and there.
Some of them people just, one woman still in pain and having 2 years to get all that and still can't get it all out. And they called it some kind of, it was on Dr. Phil yesterday. But I can't feature anything that I don't have to have. It ain't gonna be cut on me, I'll guarantee you. I mean, that's just the way it is.
I had a flu shot yesterday and I forgot about it, but I almost thought,
Well, if you could talk to people from the younger generations today, is there any advice you'd like to give them or anything you'd like them to know?
Well, the problem is they wouldn't take it. I mean, you know, every generation, I mean, like the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and early 60s was like one deal. And then you take the 60s when the Vietnam War started, that's what divided, this country was together till then, but that divided, the Vietnam War really divided it. And then you go into 60s and the 70s and the 80s was another one that wasn't quite as good as the ones before, at least. But then you go into the 90s and the 2000s, you got a whole different ball game. I mean, really, you got, like I said, you got a class of people that, I mean, I'm not talking about all of them, but a big percentage. You got about half of the people that, I mean, well, we didn't used to have to worry about getting shot without on the street or getting, you know, killed in a road rage or any of that. And as a matter of fact, even up until that stuff started in the 90s, 1990s, and it's steadily gotten worse if you just watch. I mean, people go out on the front porch and somebody shoots them. I mean, I don't, so I don't know what it's going to come to, but I won't be here, so.
I don't know, you might.
Anything can happen.
Huh?
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Never say never. You said that earlier.
But I'll tell you what, at 96, things just don't get better. I mean, you getting. But see, the two things that I got a place on my leg. It's one of those wounds that won't heal. They have to heal. It's been going on for, 3 months now. And then one time when I went to the bathroom, it was blood red. She called the ambulance and they took me to the hospital. They didn't tell me till later. They gave me 7, this is just in the last 2 months, 7 things of blood.
7 units.
And so I've got 2 bad things that, I mean, like I said, this could start bleeding again if it did. I mean, I'm just, they said I was almost a goner then. They didn't tell me that till later. But,
He started giving away all his toys.
You know, it is one thing. I had a pretty good collection of cars from 1910 Model T on up to,
Model cars.
there was model cars about that,
About a foot,
yeah.
foot or so.
And which they got the engine, the whole 9 yards in them, you know. And so by being this way, I decided to, my friends, they find one what they like, boom. I can just give it away instead of, and those things started out when I started. I've been doing it for years, but you catch some for $15 or maybe $10, and those old models like that. If you can find one, sometimes it's like $100 now. So I'm just giving those away to friends that would like to have one. That way I get to do it myself.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
But
What were some of the reunions like that you would have with some of your friends?
what would be what?
What were some of the reunions like with
Oh, you mean the Army reunion?
with some of the
Well,
members?
a lot of beer drinking, but I mean, they all turned out good. We didn't have any argument. I mean,
They iced down the beer in the bathtub.
oh yeah.
Always had
I mean,
Did you meet in the same spot every time, or did you
no,
move
what
around?
we did, I held 7 of them here in Nashville, and Art Ryan held about 6 of them in Angola, Indiana, and then we've had them in Battle Creek, Michigan, and Cocoa Beach, Florida, and just different places. And everybody pretty well, most of them all came. The way it got started though was it had actually started in Angola, Indiana. There was about 3 or 4 of them that knew each other. So one of the wives wanted to kind of start reunions, so they started. They had a reunion up there, but the people down here didn't know about it. And the next year, some way or another, they decided to have one. and to have it down here, because it's kind of a central point, Nashville was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at work at the post office, and one of our guys down here, old Charlie, anyways, down here in a small town in South Tennessee. But anyway, he called me at the post office, and he said that some of the guys up there, they had called him and checked, different ones had different names, telephone numbers, and they wanted to have a reunion, have it down here. And he said, I told him Centennial Park, be a good place, and gave him your telephone number. And so, and my address, and told them where to, meet to come to my house. And I told Martha, I don't think nobody else come. We had a backyard full of people, and then, more people found out, and so we started having it, all along, and and we'd have it here. I would arrange the hotel and stuff like that. The last one we had was down there on Donaldson Pike, right there at the interstate. But yeah, we had a pretty. Most of the guys in my outfit were the same age. I was almost the youngest one, but I mean, it wasn't 6 or 7 months difference through the whole bunch.
The little kids were little. Lisa was like 7 or 8 years old. Now, the first one in Nashville, she was just.
That was
just
1960, I believe.
Yeah, she was 2 years old. So she went to them all of her life. And the last one we had, she and her husband actually coasted it.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
They always went to the reunions after she married, and they still went.
Yeah.
And a lot of other that had it in the towns where other people and their children take care of everything.
Yeah,
They
people.
said they were supposed to be the host, but it actually turned out that we had to do it because she had a major operation, unable to walk. So we went out and scouted for the hotels and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have people a lot of time ask me, say, how do you remember stuff? I just come right up and I remember it. I said, well, no problem. I just can't remember what I had for breakfast. But I mean, I guess I am lucky that that's the one thing I've got left is I can still think pretty good, and I can think back and different. Like in 1946 was the very first stock car race in Nashville. And it was strictly stock car. That's what they called it. And then they changed it to this, what they call it now, big. But you know where the first Daytona stock car race was held? They didn't have that track down there. You've been to Daytona Beach, hadn't you?
Yeah, I'm from Florida, so.
Okay. But Highway 1 goes down.
Mm-hmm.
They went down Highway 1, down a place to go down on the beach and come back over on the beach, and then done good. And that's where the first stock car race in Florida was held. They raced them down the beach and down Highway 1. And the first in Nashville was 1946. That even before I knew her. It was over on close to Jefferson Street Bridge. It was nothing but fields and stuff. I remember I had a 38 Buick 4-door sedan and a 36 Ford coupe. I mean, they were just strictly stock cars.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was the original, and they called it stock cars. And then somebody come up and changed it to the name they have for it now.
Mm-hmm.
And but I mean, people back in those days, I mean, you just take an old car but there ain't no way that people would do that day. You got to have money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the way it is. Yeah, I taught I've got a daughter at 71. She still rides motorcycles. And, well, believe it or not, when I was 87, I was still riding Sea-Doo jet skis.
Wow.
Do you remember the first jet skis, or have you ever seen one?
Not many. No.
Well, the Kawasaki had the first jet ski. It was about 1968, 69. And you stood up on it, and they had a floating handlebar. And when you stopped using the water, I mean, it wasn't no sitting down.
Yeah.
And it was about 35 would be the top speed. Well, I bought one, my daughter Lisa here, and we went out to the lake, out to Old Hickory Lake, and she, a friend of mine was working the post office, but he was working for the boat place too, and they was the first sales. And actually, Kawasaki holds the name jet ski. The rest of them ain't jet skis like Cedar and all. But and she was gonna ride it from the back, and he said, if she gets up first, I'm done. She got up on, rode it the first time she ever got on it. So I was one of the first to have one of those jet skis. I've had 4. I've had 2 that would do over 60 miles an hour. And
Fast.
I've always played on the water. You know where you're down in front of the Opryland Hotel? Well, that road, you go back in the 1960s, right in front of the Opryland Hotel, that was a gravel road. Over where the Cracker Barrel and all that is, that was Frank and Dan Rudy's sausage farm. And they had about 8 buffalo roaming with their cattle over there. And if you've never been, just drive on down past the hotel. There's about 2 blocks down to the river. The road runs right down to the river. And if you look across, it runs right back up over in Englewood. And there was a ferry there. And that was the only way to get across that river unless you went downtown Old Hickory. So it wasn't no Riley Parkway. And so that, like I said, I never dreamed, because see, I was raised, we walked down to the ferry and crossed the ferry when I was a kid. That's where we played. Everything but cornfields and woods and stuff like that over there. And they used to have it was a sand beach, but that was before they built Old Hickory Dam. And you get those sand, you could wade halfway out in the Cumberland River in those days, over close to Opryland. And the old dam, it's on the other side of Bradley Parkway from Opryland Hotel. If you go down Pennington Bend Road, you'll run into a road down there, Lot 4. And there's a nice park down there, and that's where the old dam used to be. If you ever want to see the old dam, they've still got the locks in there, but they blew the dam out. I watched them build Old Hickory Dam. They built that in 1946, 47, and 48. And you can believe this or not, but you've been on First Priest Lake?
A long time ago.
I used to carry mail on the bottom of First Priest Lake. I was the only mail carrier in Donaldson in 1952, 53, and 54. And that dam wasn't big, that was all farms. I can go over and show you roads where I used to run right down into the road and all around over there. When I take people on tour in Limtown, I tell them I used to carry mail on bottom of the lake, and they thought I was nuts, you know. But, I mean, that was all farmland, just like Elm Hill Pike. If you've been to Elm Hill Marina, at the very back of the marina coming down that hill, that's where Elm Hill Pike come down and went out almost to the island. You can look to the left and see old Fuqua Road, which I came down, but Elm Hill dead ended in Fuqua Road. Yeah, that was, I mean, there's a lot of very low spots over there in that lake. I mean, you know, because it's not real deep in some places like Center Hill. And believe it or not, I think I'm not sure that I was the first, but I was one of the first to ever water ski. And that was, we had to go to Center Hill Lake because there wasn't no Percy Priest Lake. A friend of mine, he lives right next to Dollywood now, but anyway, he saw an ad in a magazine, the new thing is water skiing, and this was from California, and you could order a set of skis and give it a try. So he ordered a set of them, and we went up to Center Hill Lake and rented one of them aluminum boats, and he had an 18 horsepower Mercury, and threw the rope out, and I got out, and I got them, and I rode them the first time I ever got up. And I taught all the kids how to water ski around. And the last 2 jet skis I had were both Sea-Doos. Both of them do about 62. And I, back in 1973, you've seen these boats go down the lake and shoot a great big rooster tail up in the air. That's when they first started. My 2 daughters, they found a place out on Gallatin Road. I told them I'd buy them a boat. And they found this lime green gold metal flake Tahiti jet boat with a 455 Oldsmobile engine in it, 390 horsepower. And they wanted that, and I said, ain't no way I'm buying that. And so the guy that owned the thing, they took us over to the Cumberland River there and put in on that old ferry wheel. And we rode up down the lake, and it was kind of fun. I said, well, and he made me an offer. And that boat would do about close to about 85, 90.
Jeez.
And you could tilt that jet. I mean, it had 10 settings. No, you sitting that, I've got pictures of it. I mean, it's like being in an automobile. Driver's on the left side. You got the generator here. It had leather seats. I mean, it was beautiful inside and out. And I know when we first bought it, Martha and I'd go over to Percy Priest, and these kids that run up beside you had them big Mercuries. Hey, I want to run you. I said, whenever you're ready, holler go. And most people don't realize this, but a jet boat, when you kick it, you better have it aimed where you want it to go. Because it ain't like them, I mean, boom, from here to the end of the driveway, I'm at top speed. And she still got that boat in the basement, been in there 21 years. She's a hoarder. Got 5 motorcycles. She got 4 Triumph Bonnevils, or she likes to collect old, got a, I think a 66 Corvette Stingray, and lives by herself in a 3-story house. She's an engineer. I mean, she's made good money, but she needs to give it, because she's 71 degrees. I mean, 71 degrees, 71 years old.
Sam, I think you talked that.
I reckon.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to tell us before we're done?
I guess so.
I think he's giving our
Do you think of anything that I hadn't told you?
Well,
You've shared a lot of great stories with us today. I appreciate it.
Everybody gets some.
yeah.
Well, we
Well,
feel honored to hear all
it's-
this
it's-
limousine, post office, World War II, all of it. You've lived a
It's,
great life, seen a lot of changes.
It's like this. I mean, I've had an enjoyable life all the way through. I mean, there's a lot of times that you didn't know that it was going to be that way, but it just turned out that way. And it's I've done about.
You sure you don't need something to drink?
Oh,
No.
I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's been a fun life, and like I said, I always had 4-wheelers, jet skis. You ever been to snowmobile?
No, I've never been on a snowmobile.
You need to try. That's fun.
They don't have that. They don't have
I had
that
a-
in Florida.
No.
As a friend of mine that lived up in Clare, Michigan, and when they came for their first reunion, while he was talking about snowmobiles, so he told me to come up during Christmas, and so he had about 3 snow machines. Go up there and we'd ride those things. And one thing about him, first time he ever came down here on one of the reunions, he came down and went all through the mountains and everything. And he said, you know, if they'd flatten this place out, it'd be bigger than Texas. I mean, you're going through the mountains, but anyway, I'd go up and spend 3 or 4. They had actually, it was supposed to be a summer deal on the lake, but with snow machines, snowmobiles, made it a fun deal because everybody, had snowmobiles and those are real fun. Snowmobiles, 4-wheelers, all that kind of stuff is something that I was always attracted to. And back in my younger days, I did a little racing on the highway before you could. That was all 2-lane roads, of course. Yeah, I can. But you go. Well, we didn't even have a superhighway until after 1953. You know why superhighways were built in, don't you? You know who dreamed them up. The thing of it is, when Eisenhower got elected, he went into office in 1953. Well, see, I was stationed on the Augsburg Autobahn in Germany, and that was like our superhighways. And so that was the first thing he did. That was the only thing he did, really. But he got the superhighway started, and the first one was built in Kansas. That's where he was from. But if they hadn't have built them, you couldn't have it. I mean, there ain't no way you could have all these cars. But Hitler had those, the reason he built it was so he could move his troops across the country fast. I mean, that was the whole thing in a nutshell. But anyway,
Well, thank you so much.
well, I hope you got information that,
Sure.
you know,
We definitely did.
Not hard, isn't it?